Hello and welcome to another episode of Cooking with Cleavage. Today I'm going to make what we call in New Orleans lost bread. In French it's pain perdu, which actually translates to lost bread. It's what a lot of you other people know as French toast. My parents always called it lost bread when I was growing up, and I always wondered, why do they call it lost bread? Is it because it gets lost in the mixture when you're making it, or is it because you're trying to use the bread before it goes bad? Like if you remember my last episode, I made New Orleans style po' boys. You have extra French bread lying around. What are you going to do with it? Right? So you can't, a lot of people like bread, but a lot of people let bread go to waste. You know what I mean? So this is something you can do with bread besides making bread pudding or something like that. It's another variation. And like bread pudding, we use a custard. And custard is really just milk and cream or cream with eggs, right? It makes a custard. So I'm starting here with half of a cup of heavy cream and half of a cup of milk. And here are my 2 eggs. But before I add the eggs, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of sugar. I haven't made this in a while, so I looked at a few recipes. I couldn't find my personal recipe book. So I'm just kind of going by what I saw other people use. The recipe I saw asked for 3 tablespoons of sugar, but I think that's a little too sweet for 1 cup of milk. But just remember, all of these measurements can be changed according to what you like, right? So I'm just gonna make this according to what I think it should be. You mix all that sugar in really well. And then I add a teaspoon of vanilla. I'm gonna actually add a tablespoon of cognac, because they did ask, this recipe I did see asked for Armagnac or cognac or something like that. And I thought that would be good to add. And then I always add cinnamon. Cinnamon and sugar, you know, used to make cinnamon toast. So how could that be bad, right? And another thing to remember is while you're making it, you can always taste it, right? Milk isn't bad. So taste it and see if it's what you like. I'm going to stick my finger in here. Okay. Wow, that's really good. Okay, and don't forget, my mom always taught me to use a pinch of salt. A pinch of salt brings out the sugar, right? So if you actually forget the salt in something sweet, you'll notice the difference. And what I also like to do is add some of these little butter to the mixture, right? Just kind of get it in there. If you're making this for a crowd, you might not want to put your licked finger back in there, but this is just for me. So I'm gonna not worry about that. Get that all mixed in. I'm gonna move this over. And then I'm gonna mix up the eggs. All that butter is just gonna melt once you get it all together. So mix these eggs up. I find it's easier to mix up the eggs in the bowl by themselves before you add them to the milk, because then you'll be chasing the eggs, I guess, is the best way to describe it. And y'all know what I'm talking about if you've ever done that. And then you just add the eggs. And my mom always made it in a big bowl. And then she would mix all this in a big bowl and then add the bread to it. And then you want it to get nice and soaked up in there, but you don't want it to fall apart. And I found that it was hard to get it out of the bowl without the bread falling apart. And I saw while I was looking up recipes today that they were suggesting to put it in a shallow dish. So that's what I did here. And that way you can pour it over the bread without letting the egg disappear, which is why I wonder if it's called lost bread. Okay, so, okay. And then I'm just gonna pour it over here. You wanna do about half. Looks like I'm doing a little more than half. Because you want to actually turn them over, right? So I'm gonna turn them over. close this one over. And then I'm gonna pour the rest of it on top. And you can go back and get those pieces of butter if you want it to stay on top, because when you put it in the pan, it's all gonna melt, and that's fine, because you want it to be a buttery, custardy goodness. That's really what you want. And you just want all these seasonings, want the bread to penetrate, all these seasonings to penetrate inside the bread. That's really what you want. And you see how now there's a layer? I read somewhere, ooh, looks like the egg didn't get broken up. We'll just turn that one over. And you see how when you turn them over, they start to get more soggy? And you can really just use your own judgment here, right? You might want to just make a whole, separate mixture, another new mixture that actually, to make sure that all of your bread gets nice and soppy, right? Because you want it all to be, you'll see like some of these are getting really soft. That's how you want it. You don't want it to be dry. So actually, on second thought, I'm gonna make another one and I'll be back with the other one. Hey, welcome back. So I did a whole separate additional recipe. You could have probably done a half, but this is what I'm talking about. You see how it's starting to get soggy? Oh yeah. Yeah, and everything really mixed well together, so all the flavors could really work together. And then you get a skillet really hot. I've seen people bake these, but my mom always did it on the stove. Needs to be a little higher. I thought I turned it up. I think a little gnome came behind me and turned it back down. It needs to be a pretty high temperature to get the crust on the outside of the... I'm keeping the butter on the top of these so that the butter could actually melt into it. And then the butter will penetrate that bread like that. And get it all soppy and wet. Oh yeah, see this butter. Don't let any of the butter get away. We don't want any of the butter to get away. Ooh, that almost fell apart. Did you see that? So I was thinking while I was getting ready to make this, because I knew I was going to make this today, because I wanted to use the, you can also add some of the milk mixture, because I knew I wanted to use the bread before, while it was still good enough to use for this. And then my twin sister told me that my brother-in-law, my twin-in-law, is making creme brulee today. Well, creme brulee is very similar because it's a custard, right? I was like, huh. On the same day I'm making Pain Perdu, lost bread, my twin-in-law is, we must be connected more than I thought, right? So anyway, you want to cook these until they're browned. Well, it looks like it still needs a little more time. So we'll be back in a second. Okay, so as you see, you can take them out, as you go and add more in, or you could take it out and make more room in the pan so you can work it around, but you just flip it. See, that side isn't as done, so you're just gonna cook that a little bit more. And I actually turned it down because it was getting a little hot, but maybe I need to turn it back up a little just to get it. You just want them to brown on both sides. Okay, so after you get it all out of the pan, they should be browned on each side like this. I can just smell how delicious that is. So I like mine plain. Some people like theirs with syrup. Some people would make like a simple syrup with strawberry and sugar and put that on top. You can do anything with your French toast or Pain Perdu. You can add, I've saw people put orange zest in the recipe and add Grand Marnier instead of cognac. This is the first time I'm actually using cognac, so we'll see. But some people also like confectioner's sugar on top, right? Just sprinkle it a little on top, kind of like a beignet. If you don't, not from the world, you might not know what a beignet is, but it's just a New Orleans style donut. People will kill me for saying that, I guess, with confectioner's sugar on top. It's just fried dough with confectioner's sugar. So I'm gonna try it. I'm not much of a sweet lover, but I'm gonna give it a try with some confectioner's sugar since I have some. Ooh, you see the steam coming off of there. It's really hot. Oh yeah. When I first tasted a little bit of it, I thought it might need a little bit more salt. It's up to y'all to decide whether or not you want more salt. When I added the confectioner's sugar, I didn't even mind missing the salt. So anyway, this is a really easy recipe. It's easy to do in the morning. It's a great way to make use of bread that would normally go bad. And I hope y'all enjoyed this episode of Cooking with Cleavage, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.